Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are looking at something that literally affects every single person living in a municipality, yet it's so often viewed as just this thick, dry government document gathering dust on a shelf somewhere. We are talking about the Integrated Development Plan, or IDP, specifically looking at the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipalities framework. But, I really want you to shift your perspective right from the start. Don't look at the IDP as a report. Look at it as the master operating system of the city. It is the core software that dictates how everything runs, how resources are allocated, and exactly how the city plans for its future. So, how does a city decide which potholes to fix first, or which sewage spillages need immediate attention versus which road repairs can wait until next quarter? It's a genuine question, right? As citizens, we experience these everyday frustrations, and we often wonder, is local government just throwing darts at a map? Well, the reality is there is a massive, highly structured mechanism running behind the scenes to make these exact calls. And understanding this mechanism is absolutely the key to understanding how your city actually works. All right, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1, the blueprint from Mangaung, 2, planning backwards, 3, the 5 phases of planning, 4, connecting citizens and government, and finally, 5, rands and cents. Starting off with Section 1, the blueprint for Mangaung, a legislatively mandated tracker. A huge misconception is that the city starts with a blank piece of paper every single year. Actually, scratch that, they absolutely don't. The IDP planning process for Mangaung is a systematic approach to creating a massive 5-year blueprint. What we are analyzing here is the 2023-2024 period, and for this specific time frame, the process actually functions as an annual review and a tracker of the blueprint already approved back in 2022. They aren't rewriting the book, they're just checking their trajectory against it. And that number 10 is crucial here. This whole process is strictly governed by the Municipal Finance Management Act, which demands that the executive mayor must table a time schedule outlining the IDP review and budget process at least 10 months before the start of the budget year. Just think about that. 10 months before the financial year even kicks off, the strategic wheels are legally required to be in motion. That really shows you how far ahead the city has to look just to keep the lights on and the roads paved. Moving to Section 2, planning backwards, desired outcomes, the outcome-led approach. Now, this core strategic framework completely flips traditional planning on its head. Instead of looking at what they have and deciding what they can do, Mangaung uses a method that's basically reverse engineering. Outcome-led planning is a systematic method that starts by identifying the desired community goals. So you look at the very end of the finish line first. Once you know exactly what outcome you want for the community, you then work backwards through the results chain. You figure out what outputs, what daily activities, and exactly what resources are going to be required to achieve that specific end goal. It is an incredibly focused way to operate because every single action is tied directly to a predetermined result. So the absolutely crucial point is, what are those end goals for Mangaung? Well, they have identified 5 fundamental strategic objectives to work backward from: spatial transformation, economic growth, service delivery improvement, financial health improvement, and organizational strength. Basically, everything the municipality does, every project they approve, must trace backward from one of these 5 pillars. If a proposed project doesn't serve one of these 5 outcomes, no way. It simply doesn't fit the operating system. Up next is Section 3, the 5 phases of planning, looking at the chronology of the IDP. Okay, so we know the outcomes they want, but how do they legally and practically lock those in? Well, the Municipal Systems Act dictates a highly structured sequential journey. It begins with the preparation phase, assessing previous plans and gathering that initial public input. Next up is the strategy phase, focusing on intergovernmental planning and aligning the overarching strategy with the actual budget. Then comes the project phase, which is exactly what it sounds like, prioritizing specific programs and projects. After that, we hit the integration phase. This one's pretty complex. It ensures that various distinct departmental plans, like the Spatial Development Framework or the Water Services Development Plan, are harmonized, so no one is accidentally working at cross purposes. And finally, the approval phase, which is the final monitoring, reporting, and official adoption by the council. Now, you've got to keep in mind that these 5 planning phases do not exist in a vacuum. Local planning is required to integrate seamlessly with massive national and global frameworks. The city's IDP must align with the NDP Vision 2030, the Medium-Term Strategic Framework, and even the Global Sustainable Development Goals. So when Mangaung plans a local water project, it is simultaneously taking a box for South Africa's national development and global sustainability targets. It's all connected. Which brings us to Section 4,
connecting citizens and government through public participation and intergovernmental teams.
This is the absolutely crucial intersection where all those abstract, high-level planning phases and global frameworks suddenly meet the very real-world, everyday complaints of citizens on the ground. Public participation involves comparing current community aspirations against previous years to set priorities for things like road repairs and sewage spillages, and this is vital to understand. Through online platforms, press publications, and submissions to ward counselors, the public's voice is literally turned into data. Your complaints, your needs, your requests, they are captured, compared against historical data, and fed directly into that preparation phase we talked about earlier. Without this data, the city literally can't accurately plan backwards. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this concept of the one plan. Mangaung utilizes what's known as the District Development Model, or DDM. It's an all-of-government approach. Instead of the national government doing one thing, the provincial government doing another, and the local municipality doing a third, the one-plan model forces integrated planning and delivery across all three spheres of government. It ensures everyone is singing from the exact same sheet music when it comes to developing the district. And finally, Section 5, Rands and Cents, the budget. Strategy-led budgeting. This right here is the financial engine of the entire IDP. You can have the best reverse-engineered, citizen-sourced, globally aligned plan in the world, but without a mechanism to pay for those ambitious outcomes, it's just a wish list. And this brilliantly illustrates the right versus wrong approach. The wrong approach is thinking that the budget dictates the IDP, meaning, you look at the money in the bank and then decide what you can afford to do. The right approach, the officially required approach, is that the IDP drives the budget. The strategy, built on community needs and desired outcomes, must dictate the spending. The tail cannot wag the dog. To actually make that happen, the city uses the MTREF. That's the Medium-Term Revenue and Expenditure Framework. Think of this as the tool for turning developmental needs into rands and cents. Once a project makes it through those 5 phases of the IDP we discussed, the MTREF is the tangible, mathematical framework that attaches actual money to the promises made. It's basically the bridge between the strategy and the bank account. However, context is everything. For the specific 2023-2024 period we are examining, where are those rands and cents largely going? Well, following a national intervention, a massive focus for this period is the city's financial recovery plan. To achieve that strategic objective of financial health improvement, the budget is heavily directed toward rebuilding the municipality's economic resilience. Basically, before they can build the roof, they really have to repair the financial foundation. So we've reverse engineered the entire machine today. We've seen how fixing a pothole is actually the final output of a massive sequence involving outcome-led strategies, 5 distinct planning phases, national alignment, and strategy-led budgeting. But the entire system relies on the data inputted at the very beginning, the needs of the citizens. So I want you to ask yourself, will you submit your input during the next annual review? Now that you know exactly how your city's operating system works, the only question left is whether you're going to help program it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.